Run, Hide, Fight Prevention, active shooter non-firearm safety training at PowerMindTraining.com. Most people have no idea what to do if they hear shots fired.
I'm Dr. Mike Kiefer, and I have ideas, lots of them. Life-saving, non-firearm ideas. Educate yourself, your coworkers, and kids by watching my free educational videos at PowerMindTraining.com. Let's keep our schools, businesses, and churches safe from active shooters. Just one idea can save your life. Watch my free videos at PowerMindTraining.com.
Joining us now from PowerMindTraining.com. Did I get that right? Go ahead.
Yes.
There you go. Michael Kiefer?
Kiefer.
Darn it.
Good morning, sir. How are we doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on here.
Give everybody a bit of your background. I know we're going to talk a bit about when it comes to gun safety training, active shooter safety training. I definitely want to talk to you about whether or not we are, especially here in Minneapolis and Minnesota, heading the right direction when it comes to school safety. But for the listeners that may not know who you are, give everybody a bit of your background.
Okay. My background, I am trained in genetic engineering, bachelor's and master's degree, and then a PhD in behavioral psychology, specializing in people reading or personality profiling. Did a 10-year research project called the PowerMind Project, studying the behavioral habits and psychology of peak performers. Past 5 years, I've set my sights on studying active shooters, their behavior, their profiles, how they operate, how they research, what their techniques and methods are.
When we have an event like what happened in Parkland, Florida, and with your background and what you do, you start to see the narratives develop and the questions that are asked. What's sort of your instinctive reaction to that? I'm going to guess that it's got to be frustrating when it would appear, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're having discussions about everything that we shouldn't be having discussions on, especially when we're talking about the behavior of individuals that would go and carry out a horrible attack like this.
Well, all of my training is non-firearm training, and much of what I hear on the radio and the television focuses on the gun debate and the use of firearms or non-use of firearms. So I've set my sights on the idea of using the Department of Homeland Security's Run, Hide, Fight methodology, which does not involve guns or firearms.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about that.
There's three options that everybody has in an active shooter situation. The first one is to run, which depends on your distance from the shooter. The further you are from the shooter, that option becomes a better option. The hide option is if you're closer to the shooter, you don't have time to escape or get out. There may be a room that you can secure yourself into, or there may be an area that you can hide in. And then the fight option would be if you're 10 feet or less from the shooter, you would have to use some sort of defensive method for yourself to fight, because the run and hide options are not options for you.
How often is that? Is this being implemented a lot? Is it being implemented not enough in your opinion? How often is this type of method being utilized?
Well, I don't think most people have ever heard of run, hide, fight, so I don't think it's being used enough at all. In the school situations, they do lockdowns, which I think is great. They lock themselves in the room, they shut the light off, and they stay away from the doorway, which is perfect. That is great technique. I think they could train the students and the teachers in building some sort of improvised barricade with chairs, with desks, and the students that I've seen are not trained in barricade building, and they also are not trained in shielding themselves in case a shooter enters the room. Materials should be placed in front of them so that they can shield themselves from bullets in case the room is penetrated, and then they should also have some sort of improvised tool in their hand, such as an aluminum water bottle or stainless steel or metal pen they could defend themselves with just in case.
There's been some controversy around these active shooter drills that some schools implement, saying, it's not necessarily a good idea to put the idea in the kid's head that this is a thing that could happen. Where do you stand on active shooter drills in public schools?
I think that almost everybody in the United States is aware of active shooters. It's been on the radio, it's been on television. Everybody knows that there are active shooters, so I don't think you're frightening a 10th grader by telling them that there's a possibility of an active shooter. So I think my opinion on it is that awareness is much better than avoidance.
Talking with Dr. Mike Kiefer, again, powermindtraining.com. Is there anything that doesn't get discussed that you think is relevant when it comes to the mindset of an individual that's going to go and carry out this type of action? You talked a bit about your background, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you've seen in your research that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to what sort of drives an individual to go and do something like this, and perhaps that could lead us to better identifying individuals that are capable of such things.
What drives the individual is usually some sort of a trigger. They're under emotional stress, depression. They've possibly been made fun of or bullied in school, not for a short period of time, but for a long period of time. The Columbine shooters, they were bullied for many years. None of the students were surprised when they found out that those were the two individuals that committed the act. The Florida shooter, same situation, under depression, had problems at home. Not to say that everybody that has problems at home or is depressed is going to become a shooter, but there are telltale signs that a shooter really falls into a specific profile. So one of the things I think in regard to prevention would be to monitor social media. In every case that I've studied, they are very active on social media. They post what they're going to do, what their plans are. They tell other people what they're going to do. So I think our first line of defense is always prevention, and the active shooters are talkative. They're not silent individuals. They don't stay quiet about what they're doing. They're very active on social media. So I think law enforcement and the FBI is becoming much more aware to monitor that, and I think students and teachers can be more aware of that as well. When they hear things, when they see things, when students talk about committing some sort of act like this, people should be notified immediately.
You know, it's interesting, too, when we're going to talk about the Facebook situation and the testimony of Mark Zuckerberg later on in the hour. But when you think about the amount of data that we know that Facebook is gleaning from individuals, you can go and download your data profile. We got an article from a guy in the New York Times that did that and was shocked to find out just how much Facebook knew about him. All that information's there. I'm not suggesting that it be used in like going and locking somebody up looking at their data, but there is information that could be gleaned based off of somebody's profile. I imagine, just a guess, if you were to look at Nicholas Cruz's data on Facebook, you probably would find some alarming consistencies that would have added to all of the other things that we already know that people were aware with that individual.
Well, for more than a year, Nicholas Cruz was posting things that he was going to do. His plans were up there. His intentions were up there. So what I'm saying is if a student hears one of their friends or one of their classmates, or if a teacher is alerted to this, that, you know, they heard one of their friends said they were going to bring a gun to school, or they were going to shoot up the school, or they were going to carry out some sort of act like that, those are the individuals we need to look into, not just every student, but the one that is talking about it and the one that they've been tipped off to. Those would be the individuals to start looking at in a more thorough way.
Sure.
School safety has been a big topic in this legislative session. Have you been following those debates, and what are your thoughts on what's been proposed so far, and what would you propose that might be different?
Well, the first proposal would be to do more training. That's your first concept, is to provide the schools with money to do training in regard to run, hide, fight, or other methodologies, so that students and teachers can be aware of that. I heard 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Governor Dayton talking about setting up threat assessment teams within the schools, so that there's a group of individuals that would be able to monitor the tips that I talked about and to assess the level of threat that an individual proposes. And I think that is a great idea. I believe he has agreement with the legislature on that, and I think that's just perfect. That's something that we can do that's practical, does not involve guns, does not involve a debate, and I think most people would agree with the concept of having assessment teams within the schools to try and help with prevention.
What about the concept of making our schools less of a soft target? Is that something that you feel needs to be done?
Yes, and there are a lot of things that the schools can do that are low cost. It's great to have a lock on a door, but you could also purchase different types of barricades and shielding that are right on the door, metal plates that can be flipped over in the case of a lockdown drill, which will secure that door much better than a standard lock. In many cases, the active shooters will shoot through the glass, unlock the door, shoot the lock out. If they have metal shielding that is on the side of the door, that'll reinforce that door. The door is the best barricade that they have, but then they should also build barricades behind that as a secondary backup.
Look, active shooter training is something that I think everybody could benefit from, because you never know when you're going to find yourself in a situation. It's not just a school thing. It could be at a mall, it could be at a movie theater, it could be at a public setting, or thing like that. And having that information and knowing the best course of action to take depending on whatever situation you're in is very valuable, because a lot of times, otherwise you're sort of just waiting for law enforcement to respond. You can learn more and sign up for active shooter training classes at powermindtraining.com. That correct?
Yes, and I also have 5 free videos that anybody can watch for their coworkers, their family, and kids to educate themselves in regard to active shooter safety training.
Dr. Mike Kiefer, thank you so much for taking some time out this morning and joining us again. PowerMindTraining.com. Go there, check out the website, and check out the videos. It was great talking with you, sir.
Thanks for coming in.
Run, hide, fight prevention, active shooter, non-firearm safety training at PowerMindTraining.com. Most people have no idea what to do if they hear shots fired.
I'm Dr. Mike Kiefer, and I have ideas, lots of them. Life-saving, non-firearm ideas. Educate yourself, your coworkers, and kids by watching my free educational videos at PowerMindTraining.com. Let's keep our schools, businesses, and churches safe from active shooters. Just one idea can save your life. Watch my free videos at PowerMindTraining.com.